So if you're unsure of which of the two BAUER Sawhorses is the right choice for you, never fear. We're going to answer that question in today's video. So for those that are new to the channel, I'm going to give a brief background of my history and it'll give you a better idea of my knowledge as far as construction goes. So I started doing construction at age 10 with my father. He started his construction company at that time and I worked with him until I was 31 years old, at which time we kind of closed the doors, shut the business down, and I ended up becoming a building inspector. And in the last year or so, I started doing my own construction business again. And I started my own company, and I quickly realized that I needed a good set of horses. But back when we were doing construction, metal sawhorses were not very common. Everyone had their own homemade wooden sawhorses. My brother was actually the guy that always built our sawhorses. He built, I'm going to say, at least 30 sets of sawhorses, very similar to this one. He actually built this sawhorse, I'm going to say, probably 15 years ago. And we used them all the time in construction sites. Sometimes we have 3 or 4 sets of sawhorses used up at a time when we were framing new houses. And these wooden sawhorses are great. They're very resilient to wear. They're tough. You can cut into them by accident, overcut your boards, and you don't have to worry about damaging metal or damaging your saw blades. However, there are some drawbacks to wood horses. They can break, they can rot, they're heavy, and they're not collapsible, so they take up a lot of space when you transport them to the sites in your van, your trailer, your truck, whatever you're using to bring them. So if you have multiple sets of horses, they take up a lot of space and a lot of room. So even before I started doing construction yet, I've been buying a lot of stuff at Harbor Freight. I actually have a lot of videos on Harbor Freight products. I have a ton of videos on BAUER specific products, and I have some general Harbor Freight videos as well. So if you want to see any of those, please check out the description of this video. So when I started doing the construction again, I needed a good set of sawhorses, and my enclosed trailer is not overly large. It's 6 by 10, so it doesn't fit tons of tools, and I didn't want to take up valuable space with wooden horses. So I ended up getting these. These are Harbor Freight's cheaper offering, and I debated getting the better set of horses, and this time I wish I had, because although these horses have worked well, I've done a lot of jobs already with these cheap horses, there's a number of things that are much better about the other horses, and we're going to go over what they are right now. So let's go over some of the key differences. These horses cost $19.99 per sawhorse. These cost $59.99 per sawhorse. These are rated at 600 pounds per horse or 1,200 pounds per pair. These are rated at 1,300 pounds per horse or 2,600 pounds per pair. So over double the weight rating of these. So these are also about 3 times the weight. They're 24.35 pounds shipping weight per sawhorse. These are 8.2 pounds shipping weight per sawhorse. So quite literally 3 times the weight. They both have handles that you can grab. Just, cheap nylon, rubbery type handles, so you can transport the sawhorses with each hand, and those come down so they don't get in the way of you cutting your lumber or whatever you're doing on these horses. So these horses have about a 17-inch spread for the legs, whereas these horses have about a 25-inch spread. That's going to mean much more stable horses. These also have adjustable feet and a bigger foot pad, so they sink less in the ground, especially if you start getting a lot of weight on them. They both have approximately a 2 7/8 top section. However, these have a non-skid pad, so your lumber or whatever you're going to put on top of these is much less likely to slide around. As far as length of the horse, 32.5, 35.25. But of course, if you put those 2x4s in it, you get more like 43-inch. These have a 2x4 support arm on each side, so you could connect this with a 2x to your other horse and you can make a really nice platform or a table in a nice big work area to work on. It's nice and stable and it has support on all four sides. These do not have that function. The biggest difference, though, I would say, is that these have height adjustable legs. So you have a variety of different height options to choose from. Anywhere from 24¼ inches tall like this to 32 inches tall. Whereas the cheaper BAUER horses are fixed height. You only have one height, and that is 29 inches. No adjustments. Well, that's going to lead us into the final verdict. Which horse is better for you? Well, that's going to depend on your specific needs. If your main focus is budget and affordability, then this horse is going to be the better choice. It's about a third the price of this. And keep in mind, you're going to need 2 sawhorses for pretty much every application. So for these 2, you're going to spend $120 and then tax. For 2 of these, you're going to spend about $40 and then tax. So quite a difference. So another consideration is, where do you work? If you work mostly indoors on flat surfaces, whether it's concrete floors or wood floors, these sawhorses are going to work probably just fine. These really are going to shine, in my opinion, when you need to start working outdoors on uneven surfaces. If you're working on a hillside or in rocks or in bumpy ground, these adjustable feet make a huge difference. And also another big factor with adjustable feet is not everyone's the same height. Some people are 5'6", some people are 6'6". Everyone's height's different, and depending on what you stack on top of these horses, you might have a ton of lumber stacked up and you're cutting something like roof rafters. If that's you, then you're probably going to want these horses. They're going to hold a lot more weight and they're going to be adjustable. So you can put them down low. So by the time you stack all that lumber, you still have a comfortable working height. If your main goal is to have a rugged set of horses that's going to last you a while, these are definitely the better choice. I've had these horses since I think around July of 2024. So maybe, 8 or 9 months at the point of this video. And these horses are okay, but these legs are kind of flimsy, they're kind of wobbly, and I have had them fall over a few times with lumber on them. Mainly when you're setting something on it, it will kind of like push the horse off and it will fall over. Whereas I think that would be much harder with a stable base, the bigger feet, the heavier construction, the heavier weight. I think these are going to be much less likely to fall over or have issues with bending feet than these are. If a big consideration for you is how light the horses are, maybe you don't want to carry heavy horses around, these might be the better choice. Like I said earlier, these weigh about a third as much as these. About 8 pounds, 24 pounds. So if you have one in each hand, you're talking a big difference. You're talking about 16 pounds for the pair versus about 48 pounds. So it is a consideration if you have to carry them a long distance. Maybe you work in a big facility, a college or something like that. You're always indoors. You don't need super heavy duty horses. You have to carry them a long distance. And these might be the better choice. But that's the great thing about sawhorses and Harbor Freight is they usually have multiple choices for different items, whether it be sawhorses, circular saws, drill presses. Whatever tool you need, they're going to have better options and cheaper options. And the one that's right for you is going to vary depending on your situation. With all that said, I certainly am excited to try out these new horses. I think these are going to be a great addition to my company. I'm still going to keep those for smaller jobs. Maybe if I'm doing some painting of trim work or something inside where I don't really need big heavy duty horses. But these are going to be my main workhorses, pun intended, because I'm going to be doing all my framing cuts, all my big, type stuff on these. If I'm building a deck or if I'm doing anything like that, these are going to be my go-to horses. And I've seen this style with these 2x4 pockets getting more and more popular. I know when I was at Home Depot the other day, I was checking their horses out just for curiosity, and their Husky brand horses look very similar to these. I've also seen, I believe, Tough Built brand Tractor Supply, which looked similar to these. I've seen a number of brands with this style horse. So I think these are getting popular, and I'm excited to try out that function, make a nice little platform. So if I'm building frames or doing something and I need a lot of workspace, I can put a couple of 2x4s, a big 4x8 sheet of plywood, and I'll be in business. So I hope today's video helped you out. Hopefully it will help you decide which sawhorse might be right for you. If you want to see some of our other BAUER content, like when we talk about the BAUER modular toolboxes you see behind me, and a number of the BAUER battery tools, I have a whole lot of videos on them, so please check out the description of this video. See you next time.